Of all the games of recent memory, I can't think of any more hyped than The Last of Us. Even the hype of the behemoth release of 2013, Bioshock Infinite seems insignificant compared to the anticipation for Naughty Dog's latest outing and a new IP to boot. The Last of Us is a game set in around 2032 to 2033. For 20 years, mankind has been at the mercy of a terrible parasitic fungal disease that turns the host mad, eventually taking over the entire body. The disease is spread either through being bitten or from breathing spores. The United States is now under martial law, split into quarantine zones, bandit camps, and the wilderness. Nature has taken back the cities. What was once rugged and concrete has once more become a green and eerily beautiful place. You play a man named Joel, a smuggler who is tasked with transporting a young girl named Ellie across the country in search of the Fireflies, a rebel group who hold the ideals of searching for a cure to the disease. I think the first thing to talk about in The Last of Us is the setting and the environments. I mean, having nature claim back the land for itself is no easy design task. Luckily, the art and design team over at Naughty Dog have outdone themselves. Every environment is great, each section beautifully designed and constructed. I really struggle to name a repeated object that is seen multiple times in the game. The only thing I can think of is a wooden pallet that is used several times as part of puzzle solving. The game actually jokes about this repetitiveness at one point when Ellie makes a comment, I know, get on the fucking pallet. I did notice a little texture pop in here and there, but while it was noticeable, it didn't hinder the experience. When playing The Last of Us, you are never going to find the scenery anything short of breathtaking. The gameplay in The Last of Us is introduced easily and simply through the beginning of the game. The tutorials are excellent and ensure that you don't progress until you have learned the mechanic that the game is trying to teach you. There are roughly three main parts to The Last of Us in terms of gameplay: enemy encounters, foraging, and puzzle solving. Foraging is very simple. Throughout the game, you'll come across common supplies such as rags, alcohol, sharps, and varying amounts of scrap metal, known as parts. These are used to construct weapons and items that you use regularly, such as Molotov cocktails, nail bombs, and health packs. These all take time to craft, so while you can craft in combat, should you have stumbled across that one more rag you needed desperately for that health pack, you have to make sure that you're in a safe place first. You'll also come across rarer supplies such as tools and drugs, known as supplements. These are used to level Joel up per se, giving him access to better weapon upgrades and making him more effective in combat. Managing your inventory becomes a major focus, but it's streamlined in such a way that makes it a joy to use. What's also nice about foraging is that you need to purposely go out of your way to get hold of the good loot. Supplies aren't laid out in front of you, you need to keep an eye out for them, explore everywhere you can. This feature really adds to that sense of satisfaction when you stumble across a massive pile of loot. The puzzle solving in The Last of Us is extremely simple. It uses repeated mechanics throughout the game while giving each puzzle a unique twist. Perhaps you have to dive underwater to retrieve an item, or climb up high using your surroundings. Each solution is more or less the same. These puzzles are nothing to write home about, but aren't particularly bad either. They're mainly there to give the player a break from the main part of the game, enemy encounters. Enemy encounters are where some of the most fun in the game is to be had, and also where the game has the most flaws. There are two types of enemy in the game, infected and bandits, each having their own variants. Bandits are engaged in the same way roughly every time. A group will be ordered to search for Joel and Ellie and kill them. They carry varying weapon types, usually being more powerful as you progress through the game and you become more adapted to the game's mechanics. They can be approached in two ways, stealth or combat. If you can manage it, you can avoid killing them altogether and just sneak past. Otherwise, you can stealth kill people using a multitude of weapons, or just go all out and kill everyone with guns, providing you have the supplies to manage it. I always preferred the stealth approach in games, and so I took this route for most of the game. I would describe it as a more realistic version of the Predator gameplay from the Batman Arkham series by Rocksteady. What was nice is that this worked all the way through the game and on the final set of enemies before the end of the game. It's nice to see that I wasn't shoehorned into any particular playstyle. The levels were designed with both in mind. The other enemy type is infected. They have two main variants and a boss variant. The first is the runner. These are recently infected humans. They show the first stages of the fungal growth on their head and are completely insane. True to their name, once they're aware of your presence, all runners in the nearby vicinity will run full pelt towards you as they compete for the first bite of the jugular. They generally are either docile and stand on the spot, or they patrol an area. The other variant is the clicker. They are further developed stage of the disease, where the fungi has completely replaced most of the head, leaving only the mouth visible. These infected are blind and see by using sound, therefore as long as you move silently, you're effectively invisible to clickers. The downside to clickers is that they are very hard to handle in hand-to-hand situations. If they get a hold of you, then you automatically die with no QTE or any chance of surviving. You can buy an upgrade which lets you save yourself by using a shiv, but this is expensive and I never had enough supplements apart from a few times towards endgame. There is also a boss variant called a bloater. These guys are big, scary, and you don't want to mess with them. You're only forced to fight them twice in the entire game. However, there are a lot more opportunities should you be careless when it comes to stealth. Infected can be tackled like bandits, with either stealth or with combat. The switch to this is that it's actually easier to do either depending on the variant. If you're up against runners, combat is much easier. You can QTE any grab attacks and they're generally quite weak, so small arms fire and even melee is enough to take care of them. On the other hand, clickers are much more suited to stealth. So long as you move quietly and keep aware of the clicker movement patterns, they're quite easy to deal with. It's when you have to deal with both that it gets difficult. Runners are incredibly hard to stealth past. They're unpredictable and seem to have hearing better than that of a clicker. I remember multiple times where a runner shouldn't have been able to see me and I was walking slow enough that a clicker wouldn't have heard me, yet I'm a runner, I'm a runner, I'm a runner, and now I'm fighting about 8 to 10 infected. Great. This, combined with the clickers, makes a lot of infected encounters a question of luck and coincidence and not a question of skill or knowledge of game mechanics. I set nail bomb traps and I use distractions, yet I get effed by a runner that decides today is the day where he's going to discover his X-ray vision. This can lead to a lot of frustrating deaths, where you feel like there is nothing you can do. I often found myself saying, "Hey look, it's the animation where Joel gets a bite taken out of his neck. That's new." This sarcasm hiding the frustration that I felt towards the game, and I did on occasion have to set my controller down and take a break. Anyway, enough with the negatives. I want to get on to the main positive of this game: character design. This game's characters are so well fleshed out. At times I felt like I was watching a high production value TV show that I'd been invested in for weeks, not playing a video game that I'd only had for a few days. As you play and watch Ellie and Joel's relationship develop, your relationship with both characters also develops. This game makes you want to be a father. It awakens that instinct you have to protect those you care about. I cared about Ellie a lot during the game. I loved her quirks, her witty jokes, her little musical jingles and guitar noises she would make while walking. It was effortless to put myself in Joel's shoes and feel the emotions he was going through. I don't think I've ever been connected to characters in the same way that I connected to Joel and Ellie. Both voice actors did outstanding work. I must say though, Ellie as a character, as a whole, everything that went into her, that is MVP. She is the MVP of The Last of Us, hands down. I did come across a few bugs during my playthrough. Certain trigger events would fail to execute, causing AR loops to get stuck. I couldn't progress at certain points without dying and going back to my last checkpoint. This, however, happened few and far between. I also had the occasional audio bug where the sound effects would cut out. This also happened few enough times that it didn't make a difference really. Overall, The Last of Us is an outstanding game. It has a great premise, beautiful scenery, exciting gameplay, and compelling characters. However, some flaws in gameplay design meant that it fell short of the masterpiece that I hoped it would be. I decided to give Last of Us a 9 out of 10.